The Plot Sickens by Brian W. Aldiss. Originally published in the December 1966 issue of SF Impulse magazine, and republished in a collection of the author's stories called The Complete Short Stories, the 1960s, Part 3, in 2015. Read by Darrell T. Smith II for my channel, Quasar Spectra. The Plot Sickens. Dear Editor, having just read George Hay's synopsis in Impulse 4 with the greatest enjoyment, I have decided to write you a story to what? To answer Hay's? To supplement it? To extend it? Perhaps to plagiarize it, for I certainly think he has hit on a beautiful idea that will give the greatest delight to the greatest number of readers. And should not writers take advantage of the smallness of the science fiction field by conversing through fiction with one another? What George Hay has done is what Jimmy Ballard and Billy Burroughs are currently doing, straining out the fictive irrelevances from science fiction. We are all too sophisticated in the 60s to believe in characterization or in writers' clumsy attempts to persuade us that their fiction is in any way real, or an account of actual events. All we need is the facts of the fiction. This is why we would not bother to see that long, epic, what was it called now? The film with what's-her-name? Cleopatra. Whereas we would have been the devoted slaves of a film about the making of Cleopatra. We can't bear Somerset Maugham, but we read his notebooks. We need unshaped things. Fellini, Kafka's unfinishable novels, fragments of newspaper headlines, our own lives. Edwin Drood is worth a ton of Little Dorrits. We need reviews of science fiction novels, written the way they write them in the fanzines, so that we can get our shot of the incredible in a solid, undiluted chunk, like Something in the City. Knave, 40 cents, is the latest from up-and-coming Stan Kenyon and describes the taking over of a city by a giant brain. This reviewer thought it was great, like an Avram Davidson story rewritten by John W. Campbell. Needless to say, the city is New York. Dave Baxter, just sacked from the biggest advertising agency on Madison Avenue, is walking disconsolately home when he sees some strange gray matter oozing out of a gutter. There is a hospital nearby where the famous gangster Jamie Girdiron has died under the surgeon's knife following an operation for a brain tumor. Girdiron's brain got thrown out along with some other chemicals that cause it to live and proliferate. Dave Baxter stoops to pick it up, and it grows into his brain and takes him over, making him into a sadistic killer. And everyone he touches turns into a sadistic killer, too. Even the people he casually brushes against in the street turn into sadistic killers. Soon, New York is full of sadistic killers. The police are completely mystified. Luckily, Dave is a schizophrenic, and one half of his split personality does not catch the killer bug. But the chemicals seep through into it and make it proliferate. This is the good side of his brain, and everyone who is brushed by this side is turned into a saint. Kenyon has written a great parable about the perpetual duel between good and evil, and given us a love affair for extra measure. Although the climax of a gun battle in Central Park may seem a little hackneyed, Kenyon cashes in usefully on his allegory by having the saints fire apples from bazookas at the killers, a special ingredient in the apples being the only substance that can stop the proliferation of the sadistic brain. Pretty good. Ingurgitators of the Infinite, Rave, 50 cents, is by an old master of the space opera, Lance Corporal E.E. Green. Like his equally famous namesake, Graham Greene, E.E. gets down to the plot straight away. We begin with a massive spaceship very realistically described heading out of the solar system on a secret mission, propelled by a new drive, the McMurcrow drive. Its inventor, Murdo McMorcrow, a Hungarian, is aboard, together with his beautiful daughter, Wosby. She is in love with Jed Faircloud, the captain of the ship, but Jed is worried. He thinks the drive is not all it should be. Sure enough, after 2 days, the ship vanishes from normal space and finds itself in a universe consisting almost entirely of something like sponge cake. Desperately, Wosby volunteers to go outside and taste it, but Jed says no. He's getting more suspicious than ever. He recalls the plot of the previous book and remembers how the apples were useless after they had gone bad. He figures that if this really is a sponge cake universe, it will soon go stale. The crew is almost mutinying and holding Jed at gunpoint when he points to the windows. The unknown substance is going green and crumbling away. He uses the ship's computer to work out that they are in a nanosecond universe where all time values are 1,000,000 times Earth's. They blast off just before the entire universe vanishes into elapsed time. Now Jed is in love with Wosby. He tells her their secret mission. The ship was invented to go out into the galaxy to find God. They have a special new nuclear weapon aboard, Solvex, with which to blast him if they find him to make the universe safe for man. The girl pales. He realizes she knows something. Under torture, she confesses that her father, who is a religious maniac and a deacon in the Church of Scotland, learnt of the mission long ago, and his drive has special tricks built into it that will foil the God-seekers. They are lost in space with a crazy drive with a mind of its own. This is only the beginning of an action-packed novel full of brand-new ideas. No more must be given away. Despite the heavy emphasis on religion, this is never boring, and E.E. Green fans will be delighted, especially with the climax, where God wins, but in a very ingenious way. The Wine of the Last, Cave, 15 shillings, is a British offering by Anne Chagford, which was once thought to be a pen name of Robert Heinlein. This is Miss Chagford's first full-length novel and certainly shows promise, though the opening is a bit slow. The authoress has had the idea of a novel catastrophe that destroys civilization in Britain. As so often with the more intellectual science fiction, nothing much happens in the first few chapters, the kind of thing that gets SF a bad name. People have headaches, particularly Doris Rickmanson and her handsome brother Terry, who has just been sacked from the biggest advertising agency on Frith Street. They also spend a lot of money, as do their friends, who also get headaches and begin to dissolve a bit. The gardener and his wife on their father's estate are very poor and are okay. About page 60, they give refuge one stormy night to a very strange old Hungarian called Murdo McMorcrow, who poses a writer called Lance Corporal Green and says he has come in from the infinite. One of his legs is missing, and he admits to spending money. The Rickmansons are suspicious. They do not believe any writers can be called Lance Corporal Green. They are talking things over with the local chief of police when a news flash comes over the BBC saying that everyone in London is just breaking up and dissolving. Those in the wealthier sectors of town are going first. Suddenly, Terry guesses what is happening. Everyone is being taxed out of existence. He gets onto the Prime Minister right away. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister is on holiday in the Scilly Isles. The rest of the story happily forgets all about the intellectual angle and follows the adventures of Terry and Doris and McMorcrow as, painfully disintegrating, they race down to the Scilly Isles to inform the PM, while civilization goes to pot all round them. Fortunately, they get there just in time, but the chase and the dreadful mutants they meet on the way makes excellent reading. Some of this book is rather corny. For instance, the authoress always puts wireless for radio, but that must be allowed because she is British, always supposing she is not Heinlein. But the characterization is good, as so often in this type of adventure, the neurotic and depraved PM being particularly vividly drawn. The Curse of the Werewolf Women, Slave, 50 shillings, is a novelization by Soul Hunter of the film of the same name made by Independent from the three-part serial Curse of the Werewomen in the old stupendous stories of the 40s. Like the film and the serial, it has one brilliant idea. If we only ever hear about male werewolves, there must be an alternate Earth somewhere stuffed with female werewolves. It turns out that the portal between the two worlds is in the Ural Mountains in Russia. The hero, an American Air Force pilot who has crashed there, staggers through the portal in Chapter 2 and falls into the hands, or paws, I should say, of 6 of these deadly and beautiful women. He manages to alert Washington. The U.S. has to fly in its forces secretly so as not to alert the Russians, who are already suspicious, since werewomen have been seen and interrogated in the streets of Moscow and outside the biggest advertising agency on Red Square. Unfortunately, it is a quality of the portal that no machinery can pass through, so the GIs go in loaded with slingshot and swords, led by the half-disintegrated figure of Lance Corporal Green, now promoted in rank, who just managed to get away from Britain in time. After this rather dull start, the book hots up and works up to a splendid bit of sword and sorcery, but one point of logic the author seems to have overlooked kills the whole thing dead for this reviewer. Who could possibly believe in a female werewolf? Believe me, dear editor, your underpaid servant, Brian W. Aldiss. You've been listening to pre-1990s speculative fiction readings with a highlight on science fiction by Darrell T. Smith II. Please consider clicking the donation link in the description box. Thank you so much for your time and your imagination.